So there are some reasons why you might begin to gain weight in this spiritual awakening process. Not everybody will, but if you do, there are 5 main reasons I've picked up in my life as to why that might be happening. So if you're interested in this or getting a bit worried, then you're more than welcome to listen to this video. So, 5 main reasons, huh? Now, these aren't exhaustive. So, these aren't, if you're gaining weight, you're not going to be doing all of them. You might be, but just pick and choose, hear what resonates with you, take that, and then leave the rest if it doesn't resonate with you. You may just be doing one of these things, etc., etc. You may be doing none of them. If you just want to keep watching the video, you're more than welcome to. But if you're not doing any of these, from my perspective, probably not going to be gaining weight on this journey, because you can begin to create through the work that you do, the sadhana, a spiritual form of energy called ojas. Ojas, basically, there's this idea of taking from the earth. What that means is whatever you eat, you can turn into spiritual energy, and you never put weight on. And if you have a look back at the videos a long time ago from myself, you can see that was what was happening to me at that point. I was very skinny and I was eating lots of food, but none of the weight was coming onto the system. Now that began to change for me as I did less sadhana and did more coaching. And because of that, here are the reasons why I've noticed it in me, and hopefully it helps you. Before we dive into this though, I just want to introduce you down below to the free Freedom Toolkit. It's completely free. I want you to have it. It's a starter kit for you on your journey if you don't know what you're doing and you really want a little powerful head start, and you can sign up for that down below. It's completely free. Also, if you're the sort of person that's ready to take charge of your destiny and shift the trajectory of your life, and I blooming well mean it, then you're more than welcome to apply for the Freedom Blueprint down below. That's a paid product though, so you have to be willing to invest in yourself, but it will change your life if you do the work. So, number 1. Well, you've all seen me get larger. Well, I'm coming down now, quite considerably. You've all seen me in the background, slowly getting larger, the face is getting a little bit podgier, holding on to more water retention, etc., etc. And also putting on more body fat. And so here's my reasons. Number 1, grounding. Now, there's no doubt that you will put weight on if you need to ground the system. Why might you need to ground the system? Well, there might be a lot going on, and you might be in an experience of deep overwhelm, and therefore you need to come back down to earth. You also might be up in the clouds in your experience, and that might also require you to come back down to earth. We know about gravity, don't we? And if we have more body weight, we're definitely pulled closer down to the earth. And it's harder for us to leave in a way, and not that we're wanting to leave the earth, but we understand the idea, right? And so this can be one reason why we might be putting on weight. It's because there's a requirement for this body to ground. Number 2, protection. More weight, more size, it's protection, isn't it? And we know this outside the spiritual field too, although there isn't anything outside the spiritual field, it's all this. But we see it in people, don't we? If they have a really tough upbringing, for example, they will eat and eat and eat and eat. It's a protection mechanism from the outside world. It puts a little bit of a buffer between me and that which I'm protecting myself from. And so if we look at it in a really literal way, that makes sense. You might be having a very stressful experience of life, and you might be doing some new things perhaps that you feel a little bit out of depth with, or you might be being abused on the outside, and I don't take that lightly when I say that, and I don't necessarily mean serious forms of abuse. I just mean not being treated the way that's appropriate for that divine heart to be treated inside of yourself, and not knowing really what to do with that and how to place those boundaries out there. So instead we place the boundaries in our body, and this is really interesting. So that's why we can gain weight. Number 3, you may not be willing to go beyond your strong preferences and that feeling of comfort. Now, this journey is tough. We know it, but you can go a certain point, up to a certain point in this journey being comfortable and being in your preferences. But after a period of time, you begin to realize, oh, this journey isn't just about feeling good. It's about just doing the work to clear up the crap inside of me so that I may be free from all of those perceived bondages. And if we're not willing to go beyond the comfort of food or beyond the strong preferences we have for certain foods that can be causing weight gain inside of ourselves, especially if they're processed carbohydrates, then we can gain weight, and we do. And I did, and that was very strong in me. I had a very, very, very strong preference for bread, and now I don't eat bread at all. And what was that? Well, we can see the science behind it as well as the spiritual aspect of this. What was the science behind that? Well, processed carbohydrates release that hormone called insulin. So the blood sugar goes up, insulin's needed to bring that blood sugar down. But if you keep putting processed bread and processed crap in your system, the insulin gives up and it says, I'm not helping you anymore, bud. And you become insulin resistant. Now, insulin is the hormone that stores fat. And so the more insulin resistant we become, the less likely we are to be able to reduce the body weight. And the more likely we are for cardiovascular disease and diabetes. So in this instant, you have to take a no carb diet. But that leads me on to my fourth point. You may not have the right nutrition information. And this is important because nutrition, if we ever look at somebody in some of the work that I do, if their system is very low on energy and they're not able to sustain themselves, my first thing to say to them is, what are you eating? What's your nutrition looking like? Now, we have a few ideas in yoga that actually stem from Ayurveda, which is the science behind yoga, that tell us we should eat pranic positive foods. Prana is energy that's positive for your prana. We can also make pranic positive choices too. So choices in our lives that are positive for our energy, positive for our prana, and that enliven us rather than dampen us. So you have to be quite perceptive inside of ourselves as to what foods are dampening us and what are enlivening us. Of course, whole foods will enliven us, and processed foods and heavy meats or foods with toxic chemicals in it will dampen us. And this is really important to know. It goes deeper than that though, and I must say you do not have to be vegan to go on this journey. You just have to be willing to be more conscious with what you're doing. And so the question is now that we have more of a choice inside of our system, should we eat the meat all of the time? And the answer is no, not all of the time. There's also science behind this too that tells us those who eat any more than 20% of their calories from meat have a lesser lifespan. We want to be plant forward in what we're doing to the best of our ability, but that's not always the case. For example, if you have some form of insulin resistance, you're going to have to do a ketogenic diet, and that becomes very hard to do vegetarian. And so you're going to have to make some shifts inside of yourself and say, okay, this is only temporary to sort my health out, because that's got to be paramount, isn't it? Health is our wealth, you know? Get your health right. Spiritual journey comes afterwards. Make sure we get the health right first, and you'll notice anyway then that you'll have lots of energy to be able to do your spiritual pursuit. So we don't want to be judging things in this path, because if you do, it's not spiritual at all. Finally then, and this is the one that's just a tough nut, isn't it? Like, you just could be making excuses for your diet. You could know that there's a better way and you're just not doing it. And you're consistently making excuses as to why you can't or won't do that. And it's never a can't, it's just I'm not willing to. Or I don't want to yet. But you will want to at some point, most likely, as the body gets larger and larger and larger and larger and the health begins to decline. Also, if you're doing yoga, you won't be able to get into those postures anymore. And that will be a big alarm bell inside of ourselves for us to go, right, I need to sort the diet out then. Good. I hope that helps. I hope it didn't come across too gnarly. It's important. I'm going to be adding some more scientific stuff into these videos because I believe that science and spirituality, they can meet. They can meet. And it's a responsibility on both sides for that to happen. Until that happens, though, we're going to be at odds and ends, aren't we? Spiritual and science. And that's not going to help us grow. What is yoga about? It's about union. So I'm feeling my responsibility in some way, shape or form to do the research of the science, bring that into the videos so that we can create union between science and spirituality, because they are, in a way, one and the same. One is trying to point using apparatus to try and say this is what's happening, and one is the thing that created the happening and even created the apparatus for us to point, but we're not going to meet each other like that. They have to combine. And so I'll do my best. Lots of love. Namaste.